We can't stop talking about it because we have a long way to go.
Welcome to the Last Catherine podcast.
Hi, welcome to Last Catherine. I'm Pallas.
And I'm Robert John Hadfield. And the reason we have a pop right here is you just finished telling me that you feel, what was it?
I feel wealthy when I have more drinks in front of me. So if I have water and tea and the more drinks.
The only drink we had available was Big K Diet Cherry Cola. So that's why that's
slightly
there.
fancy, like just a touch of fancy.
Big K for King Supers. Okay. All right. So I've got a great what's in the blank for you here today. In 2014, blank percent of all those employed in the education health services industry were women.
70% is my guess.
That's pretty good. It was actually 75%.
Because I'm super good at this.
Now
I'm super good at this game.
What was so interesting about this? You obviously are amazing at this. Every time we do this, women make up 96.3% of dental assistants. 96.3.
Wow.
Let's see here. 95.9% of secretaries and 91.2% of registered nurses. And what was so interesting is there are other fields that have really changed in the last 40 years or so, those have barely changed at all. Those are kind of the same numbers they were even 40 years ago, where you've seen dramatic changes everywhere else. And the source on that was the AFL-CIO.
I've known a couple registered nurses that are men, but I've never had a dental assistant that's a man.
I've known of one. So anyway, we're at an undisclosed location in Arvada, Colorado today, at the Bat Cave. So I've got something really exciting to do today.
Okay.
So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to read some quotes to you.
All right.
And I want you to react to them.
Okay.
This is going to be so much
normal,
fun.
Right? Or should I
say whatever it is that you would want to
say
to
stuff.
respond to this? And I'll start off with some easy ones.
Okay. Easy ones to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll just kind of see where this goes.
There's some painful ones.
Just kind of, I thought this would be a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
So this was Gloria Steinem that said this.
Okay.
A feminist is anyone who recognizes the equality and full humanity of women and men.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I just agree. I think that feminism is often taken in the completely wrong text because there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of angry people out there. And so I have my own vocabulary throughout life. I have my own vocabulary. But this is one of the things I call people as super whatever. Like I used to be vegan, and then there's like super vegans, and super vegans are like really angry people, and they get on their little soapbox and they just are so mad, and they just have to tell everybody how mad they are. And I understand. I totally understand where they're coming from. Same thing with feminism. Like so many people, so many women have dealt with so much crap. And so they're so mad, but that anger comes out from them into something that's like to me, feminism is beautiful. It's just we're equal. And like everyone I know, in my opinion, except for one person who's my husband's dad, is a feminist. Like whether they call themselves a feminist or not, most people I know is a feminist. Like you look at me with respect and equality, and therefore you're a feminist. But those really angry people, those super feminists, just get mad, and they make people upset because they're angry and they don't hear. It's not a shared community in their mind. They're just mad.
And I'll tell you, you're right. And I'll tell you, for myself, there was a lot of time in my life where I really abhorred the idea of feminism because of that very thing. I mean, I wanted to support the ideas and the ideals, but whenever I would think about it, and every time I would see something that was feminist, it was so mean-spirited. Yeah, abrasive is a great word for it, that it just turned me off. And I was not, however much I wanted to support it, and I wanted and I think that's a big problem, that it turns a lot of people off.
Well, and it's kind of a misnomer, too. I mean, the word fem is in it, feminism. So people think often feminism means that a woman's rights are more important than men's. A lot of times I've heard people sort of, maybe not that exact definition, but they'll think that. And I think it's partially because of the word feminism, and also I think for men like yourself who wanted to support feminism, who were like, I believe that women are equal, but I don't like this idea of feminism, it's kind of like they feel attacked a lot, personally attacked when you're just bringing up things that are just a kind of a truth. Like, we had a gaming episode, and we were saying some games have been misogynistic, or there are elements in some games that are misogynistic. Well, we're not saying all games are misogynistic. We were just saying this is a truth. But if you're sensitive to that, if you're a guy gamer and you love this one game that has these elements we talked about, you can get defensive, and defensive you put up a wall against whoever's talking about that. So you stop really hearing what they're saying, you know?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So,
And so I'm going to read the next quote
Okay.
that has to do with this. This is attributed to Susan J. Douglas. One of the reasons so many women say, I am not a feminist, but, and then put forward a feminist position, is that in addition to being stereotyped as man-hating Amazons, feminists have also been cast as anti-family and anti-motherhood.
Yeah. And it's funny, though, you know, I think that's a stereotype for sure. But I haven't encountered people, you know, thinking that about me, for example. I'm a mom.
That think that you're that way.
Yeah, or like other people that are feminists. Like, most of what I hear is like a feminist point of view that is, it's feminist to be a stay-at-home mom. It's feminist to be a, you know, working mom. It's feminist to be a single mom. It's feminist to not be a mom. Like, I hear, and I'm just talking in the mother aspect, but I hear more often people saying, let's redefine feminism. It's feminist to just be who you are as a woman. And it's feminist to be who you are as a man that believes that men and women are equal. So I hear that more, but that stereotype is still there. And so I think there's a lot of people trying to break that down.
Okay, so now that takes me to another quote. Now, this is from a book that you know I've been reading, called How to Be a Woman by Caitlin Moran. I'm not sure how you say her last name. Great book, by the way. It's an awesome book. It's a little bit intense, not for the faint of heart, but, and I'll leave the profanity out of this, since we're trying to make this a family-type show. We need to reclaim the word feminism. We need the word feminism back real bad. When statistics come in saying that only 29% of American women would describe themselves as feminist and only 42% of British women, I used to think, what do you think feminism is, ladies? What part of liberation for women is not for you? Is it freedom to vote? The right not to be owned by the man you marry? The campaign for equal pay? Vogue by Madonna? Jeans? Did all that good blank get on your nerves? Or were you just drunk at the time of the survey?
I think it's just people trying not to, you know, trigger other people. They don't want to call themselves feminists. Because, I mean, we tossed around, when we were naming this, we tossed around using the word feminism in the title. But I didn't want to use that word because I want it to be approachable to people who are turned off by typical, like, feminist ideas, you know, typical being those stereotypes. So I guess they're not typical. But yeah, so I wanted it to be approachable. So I didn't want to put the name right there because then we're automatically slicing the demographic down the middle. We're saying anybody who's triggered by this word, you are not going to listen to this podcast. And I want them to listen to this podcast because, like I said, I think most people are feminists. I really think they are. And it doesn't matter to me if somebody calls themselves a feminist, really. I don't have an agenda for that. I might have an agenda in some way. I don't know if I do. But to me, like, I can see somebody and say, you're a feminist, you know. Like, you don't call yourself a feminist, but you are. And we can talk about it. And then probably at the end of that conversation, you're going to say, actually, I am. But I'm still not going to say I am out loud because I don't want to make other people upset. Right. And yeah, we're a social species. We want to be cared about. We want people to care, you know, to care for people, even though you won't see that when you're driving or on the, you know, comments on YouTube. But in reality, we do, especially for together. We want to care, show care, and we don't want to trigger people.
Caitlin Moran's comment there is that the word feminism has been so distorted that it really needs to be taken back so that and taking it back really is about turning it into something, I think, that people can just rally around and not be turned off by instantly. I just know so many people. I'll give you an example. There was a friend that found out about this podcast and was really concerned about what's going on with me because I've got this feminist stuff going on. And it was so funny. Like, no, you don't. This is not anything unusual.
Like
this is
they had
not
an
some
intervention for you?
Yeah, almost. Like this is some wacky thing that I've gotten into, and it's like, no, this is something that I've always, I've got 3 daughters, and this is something I wanted them to live in a world where they wouldn't have to, depend on a husband and feel like they've got to conform their lives to a certain way of living and feel like they've got to fall into some role that they could do whatever they wanted to do with their life. And I thought that was so important. And then like I said, people were like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening to
it's like he's going to shave his head and go into the woods."
Yeah, exactly. I go, actually, this is what I've always thought. It's just that I'm just kind of talking about it for the first time like this. So anyway.
Yeah, well, my husband said something interesting to me because, language changes over time. And so his point, and I don't know, he doesn't really believe we shouldn't use feminism, should use feminine for whatever, but he just had a thought that if a word's not working for us, maybe we should allow language to adapt. So a lot of people use the word equalist now. But to me, it doesn't matter what you call it. It's more about the idea. It's more about how you feel. And that's why I say, like, if somebody says I don't call myself a feminist, and I'm like, well, you are a feminist, though. I can tell because I know you. That's what I mean, is that it doesn't, I don't know. It's a battle that, I guess, pick your battles. And using that word, not using that word, I use it. And, I also call myself vegan. And people would go, "You're the nicest vegan I've ever met." And I'm like, that's a weird statement.
No, let me tell you something, Pallas. No, that's a great statement because, as you know, I was a vegetarian for 23 years up until a year ago, March. And people were so surprised when they would find out because I wasn't out like shoving it down people's throats. And when we go out to eat with friends, I wasn't immediately looking down on them and saying negative
like
things about it.
If they had a steak or something.
And one of my best friends was an avid hunter. And we'd razz each other about it, but it was never something that I was militant. And because you want to turn somebody off, you want somebody to not be on your side.
Yeah.
Be militant about it.
Right.
If you cannot be agreeable and nice about your position, you're never going to get anywhere with it. You've got to work with people where they are, and so.
Yeah, they want to be listened to just like you want to be listened to. So the best way to, like I said, people want to care for people and people want to be cared about. So if you just listen, and they'll listen to you too. Right.
Okay, I've got another great quote. This one is from Joss Whedon, and I picked this one because one of my best friends
I love Joss Whedon.
is one of my best friends is a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer buff.
Okay.
And so when I saw this quote, I thought, okay, for
buff.
her sake, I'm going to put this in the podcast because this is a fun quote. Equality is not a concept. It's not something we should be striving for. It's a necessity. Equality is like gravity. We need it to stand on this earth as men and women. And misogyny that is in every culture is not a true part of the human condition. It is life out of balance. And that imbalance is sucking something out of the soul of every man and woman who's confronted with it.
Yeah. That made me think of something, because we were talking about how the word feminism triggers a lot of people because there's a lot of angry people. Well, people who are really misogynistic, because I don't think anybody would really say I'm a misogynist,
Right.
But there are a lot of misogynists out there. And so people who are that way or things or music that's misogynistic or whatever, those people are really angry. So what he says there about it sucking the life out of you is when you hold on to anger, when you hold on to resentment, when you blame a whole group of people, racist, misogynist, like whatever, when you blame a group of people for some pain that you've had or some ill thing that's happening in the world, there's violence because of this, then you're just trying to come up with a them for your anger to be like projected on, and that's a really sad state because you're not really healing in yourself, and you're not really becoming part of that community and trying to understand and yourself or others. And so it's sad, misogyny could make me really angry. I mean, and it does but if I take a step back, outside of that initial reaction, then I can feel pity for those people, because it's really a sad state of mind.
It is, and one of the problems, you said something a few minutes ago about how so many of your friends you'd consider them feminist.
Yeah.
Now, one of the problems as you describe people that are angry, we can't control what we're born into and how we're raised. And so often people are raised with certain ideas and ideals. And when you become an adult and you have things fighting against it, your reaction is angry. Mm-hmm. I mean, you automatically, in certain groups of certain subcultures in the United States, the whole idea of feminism would be such a negative thing, and you would have been almost brought up with this idea that it's a bad thing. The word is a bad thing. I mean, I'm a member of the Mormon Church, and I'll tell you something. The whole idea of feminism, when you hear the word, it something,
brings along all these contextual definitions.
Baggage.
Yeah.
It brings along a lot of baggage with it, and so as a member of the Mormon Church, you have this. When you really get into the deeper doctrine of the Mormon Church, it's much more equal than you would ever think it was from somebody that stands on the outside. But you when you're raised in a Christian country, and you have things like the letters of Paul, like it or not, it actually says in the Bible for women to stay silent in the churches. It really says that. Now you can pretend that it's not in the Bible and act like, well, he didn't really mean that, but it's in the Word of God, okay?
Yeah.
And so if you really believe that's the Word of God, except for that line, well then anyway, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But my point is...
So there's contradictions within yourself if you believe that that's the Word of God and you're a woman, then it's going to be hard to swallow that.
But when you have a subculture like Christianity, and you have somebody come up and say, well, this is not really the way to be, or this is not the way to think, you automatically have this negative, angry reaction.
Yeah.
Because your belief system is being attacked. So my point is, you're raised a certain way. You are faced with something that you maybe want to believe deep down, but it attacks the fundamentals of how you were raised and how you were wired as you grew up. Your reaction is almost automatically going to be defensive or negative.
Well, and to me, inherently, it's not attacking. Like, to me, inherently, when we talk about anything, me being an atheist and you being Mormon, like, we could talk about that and not attack each other, but people bring their own baggage into that conversation. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so if somebody grew up Christian and they grew up with like this idea that the woman should take care of the children and should be at home, and so we're just using a hypothetical person here that exists, and then somebody says, well, I'm a feminist, what do you think about feminism? That's not automatically attacking them. That's just saying, have you thought about that? Like, what if a woman doesn't want to just do that? But what if a woman does want to just do that? Why can't those?
But it brings so much baggage with it that it feels like an attack.
Right. But what I'm trying to say is I think it's that person's baggage. It's not the feminist baggage.
Oh no,
it's like
you're right.
That person, yeah.
But that's my point. You're raised with certain things from the moment you're born. Your parents indoctrinate you into something. Mm-hmm. And your surroundings indoctrinate you, and your peers and the adults and the school you go to, et cetera, all indoctrinate you. And then you finally leave home one day, and then all of a sudden you step out into the world, and somebody comes with this thing. Your immediate reaction is bad.
Fear, defensiveness. Right. Yeah. I'm really lucky because I don't think my mom really indoctrinated me with much, except that she definitely had a mistrust of religion. when I was growing up, and I was really curious about religion just because my friends, I grew up in Oklahoma, my friends were all kinds of things. I mean, I had a Mormon friend, I had, Christian, different types of Christianity and whatever. So I just was like curious about religion. And so that was one thing my mom was like, roll her eyes, okay, I guess you can go with your friend to the church tonight, or whatever. So that was probably the only thing that I was aware that my mom didn't like, that I was trying to explore. But in general, it was a very like open world that I was presented with. And I look at people who broke away from their way of thinking, the way they were raised. Because there's a lot of people who were raised this way, indoctrinated a certain way, and stay on that path their whole life. It's very safe, it's comfortable, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's the way they want to live their life, and that's fine. As long as they're happy, that's cool. But then there's people who were raised very strictly, and like I have a friend who's a Jehovah's Witness, who was a Jehovah's Witness, and he broke away from the church. And that's a really intense thing to do because his family alienated him, right? So that takes a strength that, I mean, I have my own strength, but I really admire that because I don't think I've ever really had to do that, I've always been around people who thought different things, and we always had interesting conversations that were vastly differing from people's perspectives, different people's perspectives. So to see somebody who just found their way to their own personal thought process and had to confront like being their family leaving them, or whatever, is really intense and really brave. It's very courageous. So
I've never had to face anything quite like that. But I've seen that kind of thing happen
calling
before.
yourself a feminist now is courageous. Your friend thought you were like turning into a hippie and losing your mind or something.
Yeah.
So that is courageous. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like I can call myself pretty much anything, and nobody's gonna be like, "What, Pallas? What are you?" Like I have a spectrum that is much wider from the people that know me. Like they just, Pallas is just being herself. Making stuff up again.
Your rebellion would be kind of like our last show where she rebelled to become conservative.
Yeah, totally, yeah. Like if I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I would say that would make my family go.
That is funny.
Like if I ever started hunting, and I admire people who hunt. Even when I was vegan, I was like, that's incredible that you have that relationship with your food, that you can kill something and like then consume it. Because I'm eating meat now, and I can't hunt. Like, I don't know how to do that. But I also have a deep appreciation for butchers.
Yeah.
Like, that's incredible. Like, people who really know how to butcher an animal is an art form. So there's all these contradictions. There's my contradictions. It's like I have an appreciation, and I can't do it, and I'm eating meat, and I couldn't kill anything. Totally a contradiction. Anyway.
It's funny. We're both omnivores now after a bunch of time of not being.
Yeah. I think I might...
meat.
My husband he was vegan for like 13 years, vegan.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, and I think I might start eating what he kills because he wants to start hunting because he wants that relationship with his food, and that appreciation for the animal.
Very interesting.
So I might just go that. I don't know.
Wow.
flexible. It's all just murky right now.
That is interesting. Well, let's do one more quote.
Okay.
And I think
This is fun.
Be close to out of time here. So, okay, this is a great one. This is from Charlotte Whitten. Now, she was I read a little bit about her earlier today. She was the mayor of Ottawa in Canada. I guess she was the first female mayor, I think, of Ottawa in Canada. So, whatever women do, they must do twice as well as men to be thought half as good.
Yeah.
Luckily, this is not difficult. Whatever women do, they must do twice as well as men to be thought half as good. Luckily, this is not difficult.
Yeah. That's funny because that's come up a lot in our conversations, that women have to try really, really that much harder and work that much harder. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it just because, she's being silly there at the end, obviously, but I don't know. I guess I've encountered that in my life for sure because, I'm an artist and I do a lot of skateboard art. And that is something, that industry, skateboarding in general, is very male.
Sure.
But art is very male, and skateboard art is very, very
ultra male.
Very male, yeah. And so it's been a challenge for me. But then, I had a skate shop print one of my pieces, do just one. I think they printed 50, so a limited edition. But
was that the contest you were in?
no.
Or was that a different one?
That was a different one. Yeah, that was 303.
I have to ask now, that contest that you were in, which I thought you had the best stuff, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
That was long before any of this started, and I went to your thing, and that stuff was so amazing that you did. But
Thanks.
how many women submitted art to that? Do you
Well, there
remember?
was one other woman in the top 4, so that was
Okay.
cool. There was 4 of us, and it was half and half. But there was only maybe one other woman at the
In the
very
whole
beginning.
at the beginning
yeah.
of it. Okay.
So that's interesting. That might say something about, because we started with 20 people, and there was only a couple women, and there's something interesting about that maybe this is totally a speculation, but maybe women don't join something like that because don't feel like they're good enough yet. Because I have a female friend who's really young. She's 18, I think, and she's an incredible artist. She's going to be like really amazing when she's like in 10 years. It's going to be ridiculous, but she doesn't think she's good enough yet. So I wonder, like, that back to that quote, like, do we as women have to be so good that we put ourselves out there? Like, we wait till we reach a certain level of ability before we put ourselves out there? Because I can't imagine there being, like, that's very 20 to a couple, 2 or 3
Yeah.
women. There's not
It's a big difference.
If you look at the artists in Denver, it's probably pretty even. There's probably just as many female artists as there are male artists. But yet you're seeing in a competition, which was a really, really scary thing, there are only a couple women. So I don't know. It's just, I'm speculating. Maybe women don't throw themselves out there until they feel competent, till they feel like they're really good. Like they can be like, okay, I'm good enough. I throw myself out there no matter what. So that's not what I'm saying about myself, but that's an exception.
I'd love to
maybe.
get some feedback from some female artists on that idea, just see what their thoughts are
Yeah.
on that somehow. So if anybody's listening to this, we'd love to get your feedback posted on Facebook or on our YouTube channel or our website.
Yeah, and I
there's a
don't
way
think. Yeah, I mean, I guess go to YouTube, put it in the comments, tweet at us, write us on Facebook. But I was gonna say maybe not just with art, but with like costume design, because that would be something too. Like people who do cosplay, maybe there's more mediocre male cosplayers that make their outfits that throw them out there, and then women won't. Like, I wonder if women feel like they have to be
yeah.
like really bad. Well, I was gonna say a bad word, but really awesome. I don't know what the level of bad word is, but really awesome to like put on a cosplay and be like, I made this. Like, this is totally wicked.
Oh, geez. You saw some of the pictures that I posted on Facebook from when I went out to Salt Lake Comic Con.
Yeah.
Some of the costumes actually the best costumes I thought in that whole place were all things that women had put together. I mean, they were incredible
See,
stuff.
that's why
I
I'm
was
wondering.
blown away.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm wondering. Like, does a woman have to get to a certain level to be like, because of that comment, because she's gonna get, if it's mediocre, she's gonna get like torn apart. Whereas if a man develops something,
That
paints
is
something
really an interesting
that's
thought.
mediocre, it's gonna be like, oh, you mean it's all right? You did an all right job.
And he wouldn't. Yeah,
But
the thought of somebody attacking like that probably doesn't even cross. It wouldn't cross mine. I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, I've gone to
like a comic book artist, like that,
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of female comic book artists.
Right.
Like, so if a woman put out a mediocre comic book, like, they're going to be like, it's because she's a girl, it's crappy. Like, look at how crappy. Like, they're going to tear into her maybe more than they would a mediocre.
Well, that's what that Gamergate was all about, wasn't it?
Right, yeah.
There was
Right, exactly,
the
yeah.
the only reason people are playing this game is because it's so weird because a woman made it. Wasn't that kind of the idea behind it?
Yeah, and it wasn't
initially.
good because, yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
fascinating.
I don't know. That's an interesting idea.
Okay, well that was fun,
That was really
and
fun.
I've got more of them. So we'll pick this up again sometime soon. Anyway, thanks for listening or watching, whatever you happen to be doing, and Be sure to comment on our YouTube channel or on Facebook, and be sure to like our page on Facebook. That's very important. And if you're in the Denver area and you feel like you've got something fun to talk about, come get a hold of us on our website and let us know that you want to come visit, and we'll set up a time that we can possibly talk to you. And
Tweet
what
at
else?
us.
Tweet, that's right.
Yeah, at Last Catherine. Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.